295%. Just think about that number for a second. That's how much ChatGPT uninstalls spiked, literally overnight. And look, that's not a bad quarter. That's not some PR problem you spin your way out of. That was users walking out the door fast. And the reason this happened, that's what matters. Because what went down at the end of February 2026 wasn't just drama inside the AI industry, it was a trust collapse. And the shockwaves, they landed right here in India. So, how did we even get here? For that, we need to go back to February 27th, 2026. This is where the first domino fell. On that day, OpenAI signed a $200 million deal with the US Department of Defense, recently rebranded as the Department of War, giving the military access to their frontier models on classified networks. But here's the thing, this didn't come out of nowhere. Weeks earlier, Anthropic, the company behind Claude, was offered the exact same deal, and they said no. They drew two hard lines: no mass domestic surveillance, no fully autonomous weapons. The government's response? They labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security. Same label they put on Huawei. Federal agencies were told to rip out Anthropic tools within 6 months. OpenAI watched all of this happen and then stepped in and took the money. Now, watch what the users did next. February 28th, 2026, one day after the announcement. So, what did users actually do? How did the market vote? They voted with their feet. And they did it fast. ChatGPT uninstalls surged 295% day over day. One-star reviews spiked 775%. Daily active users dropped 13%. Website visits fell 16%. A total rejection overnight. And here's the other side of that. Claude, which had ranked 124 on the App Store just weeks before, became the number one free app in the entire United States. Daily signups quadrupled from 250,000 a day in January to over 1 million per day by early March. But okay, App Store rankings are one thing. Let's talk enterprise, where the real money is. And here, the shift was even more staggering. Claude's share of the US enterprise market went from 10% in early 2025 to nearly 70% by February 2026. The entire landscape flipped in 12 months. And this wasn't just happening in the market, it was happening inside OpenAI's own walls. Senior employees started walking. Caitlin Kalinowski, head of robotics and hardware, resigned publicly on March 7th. Her post: this wasn't an easy call. She named missing guardrails on lethal autonomy and surveillance as the reason. Over 700 employees across Google and OpenAI signed an open letter rejecting unrestricted military AI use. And then Sam Altman came out and admitted on social media that the whole thing looked opportunistic and sloppy. When the CEO says that, you know it's bad. OpenAI tried to fix it. They updated the contract with language saying their AI shall not be intentionally used for domestic surveillance. But come on, everyone spotted the problem. The word intentionally. Incidental collection is still collection. The loophole is right there in the text. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, called it plainly. OpenAI's guardrails are maybe 20% real and 80% safety theater. And here's the part most people missed. Because while all this chaos was burning in the US, every major AI company quietly turned its eyes somewhere else. And we'll get to exactly where it lands close to home. But first, let me give you my read on what this whole thing actually proved. This wasn't about one contract, it was a test, and OpenAI failed it publicly. The trust that took years to build got traded for a $200 million deal, and once users saw that, they didn't complain, they just left. Now, here's what most people are missing. Anthropic didn't win because their AI is smarter, they won because they said no. In a world full of companies that will say yes to anything, that mattered. Trust is the real product, not the model, not the benchmark score, not the context window. Any company that forgets that is going to get a very expensive reminder. Here's where this lands for us. We already have over 100 million weekly ChatGPT users in India. And right now, every major AI company isn't just operating here, they are building here. OpenAI partnered with Tata to build sovereign AI data centers, starting at 100 megawatts, targeting 1 gigawatt, their first infrastructure play outside the US. Google announced a $15 billion investment for a gigawatt scale AI hub in Vishakhapatnam, their largest outside the United States. Anthropic opened their first international office in Bengaluru. India is already their second largest market globally. Now, understand what's actually happening here. These tools are free in India, and that's not generosity, that's strategy. We produce 20% of the world's digital data, but store only 3% of it locally. Our languages, our dialects, our cultural context. That's the training data they cannot get anywhere else in the world. We are not just a market, we are the classroom. But we are not just sitting back and letting this happen. The India AI mission, 10,372 crore rupees approved to build our own compute. And homegrown models like BharatGen and Sarvam AI are already outperforming GPT 5.2 and Gemini on our local languages. The question for us is simple. Are we going to be consumers of AI that was built on our own data and then sold back to us? Or are we going to be co creators? So let's connect the dots. One deal in Washington sparked a trust crisis. That crisis triggered a user exodus. And that exodus forced every AI giant on earth to pivot and bet their future on one market, ours. That's not a coincidence. That's a straight line. And the question we need to answer, not someday, right now, is whether we are going to shape what comes next or just consume it. So I want to hear from you. Do you think India should be building its own AI? Or are we better off adopting what already works? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this video was useful, hit like. It genuinely helps more people find it. And if you want this every week, subscribe. I post every Sunday. See you next week.